February 9th, 2021. Welcome to Simple Man Radio. I always try and have these behind the scenes conversations, and I'm like, hey, it's Simple Man Radio. Why not have them in front of the camera? I was telling Chris I went solo yesterday because we were all set to go at 11 o'clock. It's 10:45, and I had a ton of notes ready to talk about the Super Bowl, and then the Giants signed their O-line coach, so that obviously took priority. And then so I went solo at 1 o'clock. So I would like to do some cleanup on the Super Bowl. I'm here with Chris the Entertainer. Chris, what's going on, man? How you doing? The second day with no football.
Yeah, I'm excited though because that means we're that much closer to the draft, which is what I've been thinking about for the last month as a Giants fan. Unfortunately, it's been that
Yeah.
way too often the last couple of months. But I'm excited, man. Like you said, we signed a new O-line coach. I think he fits the philosophy when you really dig into him. Seemed like it'd be a run-heavy guy. So I thought that was a good move by the Giants, and we'll see how he fits with Joe Judge and Jason Garrett. But outside of that, Super Bowl. Well, I'm sure we're going to get into it. Very underwhelming, to say the least. I thought it would be a much closer game. And then, we're also going to dive into the Derrick Rose trade, which a lot of Knicks fans are excited about. I'll give my thoughts on it. I don't think it's, we're not getting the Derrick Rose of 2011, but definitely a newsbreaker for sure in Knicks land.
Yeah, I think that'll be. I can't wait to see what happens the first game, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Super Bowl a little bit. Since I will say, dude, I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning this morning, ready to thought I was dealing with burglars or something. I hear my window outside my bedroom window. I just all of a sudden hear just like this loud noise, and I wake up like ready to go, and then it was a cat fight. I mean, these cats were going at it, and then I hurt my hand because I banged on the window to get them to scare them to get away from the window. But they were tearing each other apart, dude. And I was like 5 seconds where I was like, I have no idea what the hell is going. Have you ever heard cats fight?
I've never had cats. There's not a lot of stray cats, I guess, where I live. No, I've never seen cats fight before.
It's nasty, man. They are mean. They are loud, and they tear each other apart. I don't have cats either.
I've seen dog fights. Dog fights are bad too. But
dog fights they're vicious. But cat fights, man, they are loud. Like it's like a cartoon. Like you literally see fur flying in the air and stuff. Like they tear each other apart.
Wow. That's something fun to wake up to.
My God, I couldn't sleep afterwards. It was brutal. So that was a nice way to wake up. Super Bowl, man. We previewed this all last week. We were talking about it, and I'll be honest, Chris, I do feel a little smart because I was wrong in how big of a difference it was, but man, I felt like everyone was overlooking the fact that the Chiefs didn't have their starting offensive line playing. Like they've had, their guard out all year. Remmers had to come in as the backup guard, and then Schwartz goes out, and then Fisher's out, and it's like against some teams you can get away with that, but against a team like the Bucs who have that front four of JPP and Shaq Barrett, and then Vea and Sue in the middle, I was like, Bowles, who loves to blitz, is not going to blitz this game. He's not going to blitz this game. And he kind of did it exactly like I thought, man, and just made Mahomes and that Chiefs team look silly.
Yeah, I mean, what this game reaffirmed for me is my thought process and your thought process last year for the New York Giants in the draft was spot on. I don't care how talented the quarterback is. I don't care how many weapons you have. If you can't block, your offense ain't going to do nothing. And you saw that with the Kansas City Chiefs. There's not an offense with more talent in the NFL than the Kansas City Chiefs. You're talking about probably the most talented quarterback, fastest receiver, best tight end. They couldn't do anything because they couldn't block. And you're absolutely right. People, myself included, you're just thinking about the quarterbacks. You think it's going to be a high-flying matchup. People discounted that. And you saw what the Bucs did 2 weeks. You know what I find funny, Bobby? And I'll be the first to say I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan. I find it funny what's the word I'm trying to come up with? The narrative that people come up with. 2 weeks earlier, Aaron Rodgers dealt with the same stuff. He was sacked 5 times. They couldn't block that pass rush the entire game. They couldn't get any ground game established. They fumbled on their own 5. They gave up the 50-yard touchdown pass that Aaron Rodgers had nothing to do with. Aaron Rodgers brought him back and gave him an opportunity to win that football game. But the narrative when Rodgers gets no help is he couldn't make the final play. He's a choker. When it happens to Mahomes, and Mahomes does nothing. I mean, he did as best he could. I'm not blaming it on him. But the narrative for him is, he had no help. It's just funny how people, they pick the quarterbacks they want to stick up for.
It is interesting, and I actually had someone had a good talking point because we have crowned Mahomes, and I think Mahomes is deserving. Like what we've seen to start Mahomes' career really is unreal, and I think like besides Brady or who, like he like saying that he could end up being that you think he'll end up being a top 5 QB is not a hot take. Like it's not. But I was wondering, people were like, well, who's better, like Mahomes this year or like 2011 Rodgers, which is interesting because you can make the argument that Rodgers was just as good, and that's something I talked about doing solo yesterday, Chris. Is I got so mad at Tony Romo because there's something he said in the end of the game with Mahomes, like, oh, he'll be back and he's going to win a bunch of these. That pressure, man, I feel like we're getting lost in what we're seeing Brady do and forgetting what everybody else does. The same thing with every QB who gets there young, like, oh, he'll be back. Rodgers, I mean, we're just talking about Aaron Rodgers. He got there young. It's like this he's only going to get better. He's going to be back. He hasn't even been back to the Super Bowl. Brett Favre never won one after his first one. Guys like Dan Marino never won. Getting to those Super Bowls and winning them is so hard to do. It's the furthest thing from guaranteed. And you know what? Maybe the Chiefs are the favorite next year, but I've always said this, and especially with the Warriors, people are like, oh, the Warriors are going to win 5, 6 titles. I'm like, no, they're not. No. Stuff happens. Injuries happen. Look at this year. Injuries happen, even though I think I still would have picked the Bucks. Injuries happen. And as much as they're making it work with those players, those contracts are going to get tight 3-4 years down the road. When Mahomes' contract kicks in.
Well, that's the thing.
Kelsey's going to age out. Like stuff like that team is going to change. And stuff happens. This league changes. New guys show up. I hate putting that pressure on Mahomes that if he doesn't win 3-4 Super Bowls, like he's a failure. Like what he's done so far, it's crazy. And if he there's a good chance he has the same career as Rodgers. Like,
well, that's what happened to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was a victim of his own success, and maybe the same thing will happen to Mahomes. I'm not rooting for that. Everybody saw the talent Rodgers had, and everybody immediately said he has to win 5 or 6 Super Bowls, otherwise he's a failure. But people don't realize that it's a team sport. The Packers did not provide him with a great team throughout, most of his career, and it's why, in my opinion, he didn't win more than he did. And you look at Mahomes, his contract hasn't kicked in yet. I don't think people realize that. He signed the extension,
right? But
it doesn't kick in really until 2023. That's when it's going to become much more challenging for him. And yeah, that's stupid for Romo to say that. You don't know in the NFL. Andy Reid may retire in 3 or 4 years too. You don't know that. He could have a lot to do with why Mahomes has been as successful as he's been. Andy Reid's one of the most brilliant offensive minds, even though I don't think he called that good of a game in the Super Bowl. Is one of the most brilliant offensive minds in the sport.
I thought his game plan sucked, to be honest.
Yeah.
You knew you didn't have your guys. Like, I don't get why they didn't change anything. Like, it was like you knew you didn't have your tackles. You knew what, Chris, if I called what the Bucs were going to do, I feel like you should have at least been prepared for what the Bucs were going to do, and not just be like, "Hey, we're still going downfield." So it was.
He didn't get a lot of help either. I mean, Hill I think dropped the touchdown in the end zone.
I will say that first one that hit the guy in the face, that got tipped right before it got to him.
Did it?
Like, it was only a fingertip.
I saw the hand get in front of his face. I didn't know the ball was tipped.
The second one, he did drop. So, and then you had the Kelsey drop on third down, which is big. So there's this isn't bash Mahomes. Like he didn't I don't think anybody thinks less of Mahomes because of that game. I don't think he played good. There's some people saying oh, he played good. His team just let him down. It's like, no, he didn't. He was running around like crazy when there's times just get the ball out quick, man.
His team scored 9 points. You can't say he played good.
Yeah. It's like, did other people on his team let him down? Yeah, but I don't think Mahomes played good in that game. And another thing that Romo did that pissed me off is oh, he's on one leg. It's like, no, it wasn't. It's like he may be banged up, but he was not on. Look at the way he was running around. Tell me he was on one leg. Their best offense to start the game was him running the ball.
And you're on Twitter like me, and you see all these takes, and I'm sure you got this a lot last year, and you get it now with Deshaun Watson. Well, I hear a lot of Giants fans say, oh, you don't even need that good of an offensive line. You just need a quarterback that could move around and make plays with his legs. It'll make up for a poor offensive line. Well, Mahomes has legs, right, Bobby? How did that look during that Super Bowl with a poor offensive line? You still win in the trenches. Maybe I'm too old school, Bobby.
I agree with that somewhat because I don't think you need to have the top offensive line.
You don't need the top, but you need a good one.
Yeah. they need at least like an average offensive line, which you know what they had. Like Schwartz and Fisher were good tackles.
Yeah.
So like they had it. It's just they were banged up and that kind of stuff happens. How about Mike Remmers though? I think Mike Remmers was a good for what he was supposed to be for the New York Giants as right tackle. But man, that guy's Super Bowl experience has the worst Super Bowl experience of all time, that game. And then Von Miller just eating his lunch, when he was with Carolina. I mean, like what I'm trying to think of what players had worse experience in the Super Bowl than Mike Remmers. I mean, that's just brutal, dude.
That's tough. I'd have to think about that one, but that's up there. And watching that game made me realize how much I don't miss Mike Remmers.
I would have rather had him than Fleming, but I agree with you there.
You think he's better than Fleming? They're about the same to me. They're about the same to me.
Yeah. So I always said, because everyone's like, oh, well, Solder and Remmers had the most pressures of any tackle duo. I've made this joke too many times now. People are going to start getting annoyed with it. But it was like when Tracy McGrady and Juwan Howard were the top scoring duo in the NBA. It's like, it's not because Juwan Howard. Like, I promise you that it was Tracy McGrady leading in points. It was Nate Solder that made them the top duo.
Yeah,
but I agree.
I think Solder, if I remember correctly, Solder gave up, I think it was like 59 pressures.
It was crazy. It was a crazy amount.
Remmers gave up 40. So he was good. He just wasn't on the level of Solder.
yeah. He was the Juwan Howard of pressures.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, man, I don't think what Brady's doing is ever going to be able to be matched.
No.
It's just we just talked about how hard it is to get here. He has more Super Bowls than any franchise, and I know that's been a take that everyone said, but we are living in something that's I just don't see that ever being broken, Chris. I don't think it'll ever even get close to being broken from one QB.
Listen, I say it all the time. It all depends on how you evaluate the GOAT. But if you're a person that evaluates the GOAT at the quarterback position, which is the most important position on winning and winning Super Bowls and stepping up in the big moments, Tom Brady's never going to be topped. I mean, he may not be the most talented ever, but in terms of an overall everything, it's not going to be topped. What he's doing in this salary cap era, factor that in. Because when Montana was doing it, there was no salary cap. When Bradshaw was doing it, there was no salary cap. What he's doing, winning 7 Super Bowls and going to 10. I mean, he's been to 10 Super Bowls, Bobby. How many teams? I mean, that's ridiculous. That'll never be topped. There'll never be another quarterback to win 7 Super Bowls, especially with the salary cap. It's incredible, and you got to admire it. What he did this year with Tampa, he got put in a good situation. He's not stupid. I kind of look at it like he's an actor that got to pick his role, and he said, oh, yeah, I'll win an Oscar if I take that role. And he went to Tampa. They had a great foundation. They had great weapons. And he said, all right, if I don't throw 30 picks like Winston did last year, with the weapons that they've got, the coaching that they have, we're going to be a really good football team. And he went to a good spot. And
I agree. It's like, because some of the arguments like, well, he had a good team. It's like, well, so does everybody. Like, so does Patrick Mahomes, and no one's, like discounting what Patrick Mahomes has done.
Yeah.
And also, like, oh, well, this year they have Gronk, Antonio Brown, and Leonard Fournette. It's like, you want to know why those guys are there? Because they want to play with Tom Brady. They want to play with the best ever, They weren't. Yeah. It's not because there's some random 43-year-old QB they want to go play in Tampa.
And that's what I say as a Giants fan. And I'm not trying to knock Daniel Jones. I still think Daniel Jones could be good. But for all the Giants fans that are saying, oh, yeah, let's get Allen Robinson. Let's get Kenny Golladay. They're probably going to see more attractive quarterback options. And I think that's what happened with Tom Brady. Like you said, These guys said, I want to go play with Tom Brady. There's probably going to be, and I'm not, Jones could end up being good, but right now they're going to say 11 touchdowns last year. Not the most attractive destination. And you're right.
Yeah, you're not going to get any wide receiver on a bargain this year.
You're not. And, that's why I'm leaning that if we sign somebody, it'll probably be mid-tier, like Corey Davis or Curtis Samuel. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope we get one of those guys. But you're absolutely right.
I mean, you can still get one of those guys. You're just going to have to pay. You're just going to have to give him the best offer.
Yeah, an arm and a leg.
Yeah. Which I think is going to be the case either. Like, I think I love this idea that, like, you saw Allen Robinson. He's like, I want a ring. And people are like, see, he's not coming to the Giants. So, like, I bet you he just wants the most money. Like, I bet you he wants to win a Super Bowl, but I think he's going to take whoever gives him the biggest contract.
They all want to.
If the Bears try and give him the biggest contract, he'll stay.
Yeah.
If
they all want to ring until you flash the cash.
Yeah, and I don't blame them for that.
And then they say to themselves, "Oh yeah, well I could win a ring there." I mean, let's put it this way: it looks a lot more realistic that you could win a ring when you're getting paid the most money in that said destination.
Yeah. It's like I want a ring too, but I'm not like it's not going to happen. I'm not going to, I'm not going to drop my life to go and be an NFL player. I'm not going to waste my time. I'm going to take this money in this media business. So, and then Warren, I wanted to hit on this point because he does make good points, like saying Bobby, he is getting surgery this week, talking about Mahomes. Nobody's saying that Mahomes wasn't banged up, but Romo saying he was on one leg to me was like, he's like, look at the way he's running around. That's not a guy on one leg. He was banged up for sure, but it's like a lot of guys are banged up, I'm not, it sucks that he has to play with it, but he wasn't like on one leg. And also, Robert Saleh, the Jets coach, I found an article of him. He was like, don't believe Mahomes when he does that limp. He's like, you got to keep going after him and after him. And the Bucs went after him like really no team has yet. Yeah,
listen, man. Eli Manning got beat like a punching bag against the San Francisco 49ers. No excuses there. That's the game of football. It's a violent sport. You got to overcome it in the biggest moments. And Mahomes didn't. Not mainly his fault. The offensive line was horrible, but he didn't.
Do you think the Chiefs should be the favorites to win it next year?
I mean, I got to see how the rest of the offseason plays out, what teams do in free agency and the draft and everything else, but they're going to be in the top 2 or 3. I mean, they still have the best quarterback and one of the best coaches on the planet.
Yeah.
You figure the West will get more challenging. You think Herbert might take a step up. You figure maybe the Raiders. I'm not a Raiders guy. I'm just not. Every year they tease me at the beginning of the year and then they fall off. And the Broncos suck. So they'll probably still beat up on their division. Yeah, I mean, bare minimum 13-win team next year. Maybe 12-win team at worst. And
I don't think we talked enough about how they were 15-1 this year. Like they are a close Raiders game away from being 16. Like they could have been the 18-0 team. Like they were really good. Like, I know they had some close games and it seemed like they were sleepwalking at times, but yeah, they're still a juggernaut. Their like we were talking about before, things change and windows close, but next year their window is fully open. So
I think they still got 2 years of being a clear-cut favorite. I think they still got 2, and then that Mahomes contract will set in. Some of those players will get older. You're going to lose some players to free agency. Maybe you have to rebuff the offensive line, and that's when you'll start to see them come back to the pack.
Right. All right, let's talk about some Knicks. You guys got Derrick Rose, which was a good deal. You gave up a second in Dennis Smith, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Dennis Smith, he's useless at this point. A second-round pick is a second, you're never going to be mad because you move 1 second-round pick. Are you scared, though, that it's going to be when this gets settled and these guys are fully, ready to go, that Thibodeau is going to pit Derrick Rose and Peyton and Quickly's minutes are going to drop?
First off, in terms of just evaluating the trade, there's nothing to be upset about. Dennis Smith Jr. is a trash can. He was a trash can when we brought him in. He's still a trash can. I think he was in the G League, wasn't playing with the Knicks. So we didn't, like you said, second round pick is peanuts in the NBA. A lot of people who are second round pick, if they're NFL fans, are like, oh, that's a lot. No, not in the NBA. NBA second round pick is more, most of the time doesn't pan out to be much. So in terms of what we gave up, I'm happy. We didn't give up anything to bring in a veteran. The other thing I want to point to that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, who better to teach some of the younger players how to run the Thibodeau scheme, what Thibodeau's looking to do than Derrick Rose? Derrick Rose won the MVP in 2011 with Thibodeau. Obviously a guy that Thibodeau really respects. So I think the Knicks looked at that and they valued that. Now, like, to go back to what you said, yeah, as a Knicks fan, what I worry about, what a lot of Knicks fans worry about is how are the minutes going to be distributed now? Is he going to cut into Quickly's minutes? Because we need Quickly to develop. We need Quickly to get better. I don't think that'll be the case. And Thibodeau's going to have to get creative. There's no doubt about it. I think guys like Burks will lose minutes. I think guys like Austin Rivers will lose minutes. And I think Elfrid Payton will lose some minutes. But I still think Quickly's going to get his 15 to 20 minutes. I really don't think it's going to hurt his. I
think they should cut Payton's minutes out altogether.
I hate Payton.
Use Rose, Rivers, and Quickly. Those are three guys who can run the point. Use them. Yeah. Use them as your rotation at that point spot. So on paper, I love this trade for the Knicks. Like you said, in one, even if it doesn't work out with Rose, like you didn't lose anything. Dennis Smith was wasting away. and then a second round pick is, like I said, most those times those guys usually don't even aren't even on the roster a year or two later.
Yeah.
So there's no risk in this trade, but I am a little worried that Rose, he has pressure on him for the first time. Like, you guys right now are like in the 6th seed in the East. Like, you guys haven't competed for playoffs in a long time, so there is pressure. I do like what Thibs is doing, even though obviously there's some issues with his, his whole idea of playing Peyton, and there's some issues, but like the Knicks are playing good. They're playing good defense, and Rose, who's been good the past couple of years, has had no pressure in Minnesota and Detroit. Like, just zero pressure at all. There's been no pressure on Derrick Rose to perform. So that kind of worries me with his history of literally disappearing with the Knicks.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit.
You got two disappearing acts in New York with Derrick Rose and Kyrie Irving.
Yes, this is true. This is true.
Who is the next guy to disappear? That should be our bet of the day.
The next guy to disappear. Oh, wow. I'd have to think about that. Rose, of course, had the sexual allegations back in 2017. Hopefully not R.J. Barrett. Barrett had a horrible game 2 days ago. Thibodeau only played him 19 minutes. That's a good. Well, I'll have to think about that. But as far as Rose goes, I don't know, man. I'm not too worried about it. I think he's a veteran. I think he's a guy that they're not going to ask to do too much. And I think he's actually going to come off the bench from what I read, at least to start. They said that Elfrid Payton's still going to remain the starter. Maybe they don't want to screw up the starting rotation, but I think Rose will definitely cut into some of his minutes. The other thing I like about Rose is he could play both spots. He's definitely a guy capable of playing the two, off the ball as well as the one. So we'll see. I like the fit. Am I going to be ecstatic about this move? Do I think no, but it's a good move. Now the question a lot of Knicks fans have now, because the guys that were rumored to be in that trade, Kevin Knox and Frank Ntilikina, were not. And reports came out that the Knicks refused to put Kevin Knox in that trade. And a lot of Knicks fans are like, why? I mean, you weren't playing him. He's played 0 minutes like the last 7 games. Like, he's completely out of the rotation. He's a young player. And a lot of Knicks fans are speculating, could it be because they want to include them in a bigger trade? Do they want to try to include those guys and draft picks to bring in a guy like Zach LaVine, or a guy like Bradley Beal? And that's what Knicks fans are thinking. And we'll see if that's the case. The other thing they could do is basically get back that second-round pick. They might trade Kevin Knox to get the second-round pick that they gave up. But that was another interesting part of that trade.
I don't think you guys have the pieces to trade for Beal. But I agree with that, though. Like, even though Knox isn't playing, I wouldn't trade him for Derrick Rose. Because, Derrick Rose isn't like a long-term. Like trading for him isn't a long-term trade. It's a short-term, which I'm fine with. I think there is value of getting into the playoffs and getting back to some bit of winning instead of being the laughing stock of the NBA. Which, like the Nets, we went through that. Like, there was a time where we were the laughing stock of the NBA. We got back winning, and then, a year later we're signing big players. So this is how it starts. Culture is overrated, but it's not nothing either. But I wouldn't trade Kevin Knox for a guy for a short-term answer.
Yeah,
I like Knox. Like, I don't think he's going to be great or nothing, but I think Knox can be a solid player in the NBA.
I hope.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think he could be a good rotation. I don't know. I like him. I don't watch the Knicks every night like you do, so obviously you'll know them better than me. But I just always like Knox. Like, I feel like I like the way he shoots. I like the way he plays ball.
The thing with Knox is his defense is horrible. He's still young, but his defense is horrible. I think that's why Thibodeau doesn't have him in the rotation. It was encouraging early on. He actually was knocking down his threes, and I was surprised that they took him out of the rotation. And we'll see. I wouldn't be opposed to keeping them and letting them develop. I'm actually a Ntilikina fan. He hasn't been playing at all. I thought Thibodeau would have liked him. He's a defensive guy.
Yeah, that's weird.
He hasn't been playing at all, so that's another thing that's kind of discouraging. As much as I want this team to compete, I also want to see these younger players develop. People forget Kevin Knox is still 21 years old.
Yeah.
Ntilikina is 22 years old. So I'm a little disappointed with that. Toppin as well. A lot of people question him, his role with this team now that Julius Randle's playing well. I did read that a lot of people felt like Derrick Rose coming here will help Obi Toppin. They feel like they could have some good chemistry the way that Rose plays. We'll see with that, but overall, I can't complain about the move. I know Knicks fans like to complain about everything. There's nothing to complain about here. It was a fine.
Yeah, you lost nothing. I mean,
yeah.
If Dennis Smith was probably the most invaluable player on your roster.
Yeah.
Which I think is funny that people will just remember that first year with the Mavs, and you'll see Pistons fans like, man, we got a guy like Dennis Smith. This is fun. And remember LeBron? Do you remember LeBron being like, oh, he should have been a Knick. The Knicks screwed up by passing on. Shut up, LeBron.
Yeah.
LeBron's talent evaluation sucks. Remember the Miami Heat drafted Shabazz Napier because LeBron just watches guys in the tournament, and he's like, I like that guy. I want. It's always like it's a guard who's not going to translate to the NBA. It's always those are the guys who LeBron says, oh, like he should be good. And then also, it's like a lot of teams passed on Dennis Smith. It wasn't only the Knicks. I feel like sometimes I feel like a LeBron hater, even though I do like him a lot. He's such a weirdo. Like I just remember that clip of him being like, why is he's supposed to be a Knick? It's like, what are you talking about, dude? Like there's other teams that passed on him too. And look at him now. He sucks.
You know who should have been at Knicks was Donovan Mitchell. That's who we should have taken instead of Frank Ntilikina, not Dennis Smith Jr.
Yeah, but everyone should have taken Donovan Mitchell, you know?
Yeah.
I love it. It's like with Giannis. It's like, well, the Cavs should have taken Giannis. Like there was 14 teams that should have taken Giannis over. Like that was one of the worst drafts of all time. Anthony Bennett going first and Giannis, two-time league MVP gets picked 15th by the Bucks. It wasn't like the Bucks. Like the Bucks, if they were picking 9th, I bet they probably didn't pick Giannis. Like nobody knew that was going to happen with him.
Yeah, sometimes you hit and sometimes you miss. That's kind of like a Pat Mahomes type pick. It was or Josh Allen type prospect where it was a home run or a strikeout. It was kind of that way with Giannis. It's why he went where he did. But yeah, I love the Monday morning quarterbacks 2-3 years after a draft. I love those people. I get those on Twitter with the Giants. Oh yeah,
it's so frustrating.
Oh, they should have taken Lamar Jackson. Number 2 overall. Every team in the league passed up on Lamar Jackson, but the Giants should have taken him at number 2 overall. Okay.
You know what team passed on Lamar Jackson more than any team in the NFL?
Who?
The Ravens. They passed on him twice.
And then they traded up to get him.
Yeah. Like if they believed in it, like if they knew Lamar would have been what Lamar would have been, they wouldn't have taken a chance. They would have drafted him with one of those earlier picks. So I always loved that. Like, oh, these teams passed on Lamar. It's like, you know what team passed on Lamar more than any team in the NFL? The team that got Lamar Jackson with the Baltimore Ravens.
And I got news for you, Bobby. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, they're not the same players with the Giants. The Giants' offensive line can't block like those teams can.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see a guy like Lamar. I would love to see a guy like Lamar on a team that, like the Ravens totally embraced it. Like the Ravens did it the way
they have a great offensive line.
Yeah, they do.
That helps.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Joe, and I know we're getting the Giants talk because somehow it got to because PFF said he was the most improved Giant, and I don't use PFF
Daniel
grades.
Jones.
Yeah, like I don't.
Let me check. I thought it was actually the most improved player in the NFL. Let me check that real quick.
Well, it's because they weigh interceptions and fumbles so high, and I don't think you should do that with a young QB. I think
I'm sorry, my mistake. It was the Giants' most improved player.
Yeah, it's like that's one of my biggest issues with PFF is the way they grade players.
Listen,
so we were talking about with Jones,
go by, especially with quarterbacks. I don't go by PFF. Last year they had Haskins above Jones, so you can't have it two ways, Bobby. Last year, Giants fans, when Haskins was above Jones, everybody said, "Oh, PFF doesn't know what they're talking about." Yada 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 yada. Now that PFF is backing up Jones, you can't be. See, look at PFF. Look where they got Jones. No. You can't have it both ways. So that's my take on it. I do think though, Jones did improve in certain areas that don't show up in a box score. I do think that, and I think he needs to put it all together this year. I think his biggest weaknesses coming into this year, Bobby, I thought were the pocket awareness, the fumbling, and his ability to read defenses. I actually thought he got at least somewhat better in all 3 of those areas. It just didn't translate into touchdowns. And some of it may have to do with the fact that the Giants run a very conservative offense. Maybe that's why his fumbling was way down. But regardless, the guy didn't turn the football over the second half of the season. He had 2 turnovers. And that's a big step in the right direction. Now he's got to start hitting those big plays with it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think the Giants QB-wise are in the same. This year is important where with Darnold. I don't think Darnold is I think Darnold can be good still. I do. But the Jets cannot try and they need to move on. They got to move on. You ruined it. You had 3 years. You screwed it up. You got to move on. He needs to change the scenery. You need to start over again with the QB spot. And And I think that's the same situation the Giants could be in next year, where it's like, even if like because they kept Jason Garrett, it's like, man, even next year, like if this scheme sucks and it continues to suck or whatever, and Jones struggles or has a similar year or maybe slightly above, and the Giants are in a position to take a QB, they might need to, not even because you've given up on Jones, but because like, hey, you screwed up this window with this guy. It's you need a fresh start.
It's just common sense, Bobby, and it's what I say on my channel. And some Giants fans may hate me for it, but it's just the truth. It's the way of the NFL nowadays. The best opportunity to win a Super Bowl is when that quarterback is on his rookie deal.
Yeah.
And if you're not even getting close to winning a Super Bowl 3 years into the guy's rookie deal, you got to start looking elsewhere. If you have the opportunity, it's resetting the clock. It's giving your team the opportunity to have a better chance to win a Super Bowl. That's what it comes down to.
And it depends where you are. Like if we're drafting second, then it's like,
yeah, that's what I mean. If you're picking 15th, no. But
yeah, if we're 14th, 15th now, that's a different story. Doesn't even mean you have to, like, don't give him an extension.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean like you got him, like, at the end of the day, we have him for 3 more years on his rookie deal because you have that 5th-year option.
Yeah.
So like there's 3 more years with Jones where we don't have to make a commitment. So if he doesn't, like, I don't think, even if he lights it up this year, I wouldn't make a commitment. I would like, let's see it in year 4. Like let's don't get into the same issue the Eagles or other teams got into.
Jared Goff with the Rams.
So, and I get called a Jones homer. But if I can say that, I think most people should be able to. So
I think it's just common sense.
Yeah, common sense ain't so common, Chris. But I agree with you. It's so frustrating seeing people. They'll use PFF when it favors the Giants, and then they hate it when it's against. It's like, no, just hate it all the time. Don't use it all the time.
Yeah, either love it or hate it. Like
you're gonna make yourself look like a hypocrite. So
yeah,
last year we waged war on PFF, and then this year it's like, I don't care how nice they are to the Giants. We're not showing them any love.
Yeah, you can't have it both ways. If you're gonna get frustrated last year, you can't then use the same metrics to say, oh, see, Daniel Jones is really good. No, you can't have it that way. Yeah.
Pick of the day. I'm looking at it right now because I forgot to look it up.
Yeah, I pulled it up too because I knew it was coming up.
Let's see.
I'm gonna be a homer today.
Okay. You know what? I'm gonna be a contrarian. I'm gonna go Heat -6.
I'm gonna go Knicks +6.
We're gonna be contrarians today. So I just the overall records. I'm on a little bit of a winning streak. I am above 500. Let me pull up the standings. I am 8-7. You were 3-4-1. Danny is 4-4-1, and then Snacks is 2-1. He never comes on the show anymore because we stopped doing these on Wednesday. Smoke me said, I just took a big old dump. It felt like lava was coming out of my butt. It still burns. What should I do? I think I think you're just trying to be funny in the comments, and it honestly wasn't the funniest comment, Smoke Mo. But try again.
Probably seek medical help.
Yeah, medical help.
Or maybe stop eating so many jalapenos.
You know what? You should do subscribe to Talking Giants and Venmo me $100. That's what it'll do.
That'll solve his butt problems.
There's a guy who keeps on commenting on the Talking Giants Instagram like it's a spam, being like, if you need help paying bills, DM me. And so now all our commenters are responding with their Venmos in there to screw with the guy.
Jared says, I don't know who the most improved player was. The article that came out was the Giants' most improved player per PFF, Jared. So
yeah,
but it was Jones, and I'm not surprised because when you looked at Jones' PFF numbers this year, he was close to 80. He was like
yes, because they are so like heavily weighted by turnover plays,
and I think his running grade is really high too.
Can I say something too?
Yeah, no, you can't.
When evaluating a young QB, and this is specific to Jones, I don't really look at the fumbles. Like I don't. Like
First year I don't. Second year I start to look at it.
It's a worry, but it's like I will never let fumbles be the deciding factor on Daniel Jones for me. Like it's just not. Like if this guy can, like, I want to see how he can work the pocket, get the ball downfield, score points, make plays. That like fumble, like Eli had some fumble issues. Like a lot of QBs have fumbling issues. So So just
Tom Brady had fumbling issues. I did a video on this actually before the year started. Tony Romo had horrible fumbling issues early on in his career, and they improved it greatly in year 2 and year 3, just like Jones did this year.
yeah, I just don't care about fumbles that much. I don't. Yeah. I don't. If he was a running back, I would.
When it costs you games, I do.
Yeah.
When it costs you games, I do.
But I'm talking about just like in developing him. It's not like in a game. If he fumbles, I'm like, I don't really care about that. But I'm saying, like, looking at Jones' big picture, like the fumbles they don't bother me. they bother me, but it's like they're not
it's growing pains.
They don't change my opinion of him at all.
It's growing pains. It's not you still want to see how
And he did,
but that's part of pocket awareness too. It's got to get better.
And he did cut them in half this year.
He got much better this year in that area. And
yeah,
you won't hear that. You won't hear that. All the Jones detractors, like I feel like I'm kind of like. I'm not like a Jones lover, but I'm also not a Jones detractor. I try to be as fair as I can. But the people who hate Jones, that's all you heard going into the year. Fumble.
They just changed. It's because
now
he
they
doesn't
just
run
changed
around
to something else. Now,
and look
last
crazy.
year, they ignored the touchdown numbers when he threw 24 touchdowns in 12 games, and they just harped on the fumbles. This year, when they had a more conservative offense for obvious reasons, Saquon Barkley going down, new offense, didn't have a normal offseason to prepare and everything else, they'll be like, oh, he only threw 11 touchdowns. But what about the fumbling? You were complaining about that all last year. He got much better there. Well,
here's something I've learned is some people are always going to look for something with their player. It's a New York thing. And people hate, and we'll end it here. People hate when you compare Jones to Eli. It's not comparing Jones as the player to Eli. It's just comparing to the way that Eli was like. And people hate this because it reminds them, and they know it's true, that this town, New York, hated Eli. They hated him. This is before social media. People hated Eli. New York Giants fans hated Eli. There was always something, even when, and people were like, well, Eli was winning. And it's like, yeah, that proves our point. Even when they were winning, people hated him. They wanted to move on from him. I mean, think about this. Tom Coughlin people said he had to be fired. The 2 years he won a Super Bowl. And you could say, well, he didn't win the Super Bowl yet. Yeah, but you're saying it's showing that you don't know how to evaluate a coach. You don't. So you don't know how to evaluate a coach. It's because this guy was capable of winning 2 Super Bowls the years that you said his coaching was getting fired. So it's just showing you don't really know what you're talking about. And
Bobby, I say it all the time. If it was up to the fans, the Giants fans on Twitter, we'd have a new coach every year. We'd have a new general manager every year. We'd have a new quarterback every year. I think about this a lot. If Eli Manning came up with this team, and again, I'm not comparing the two quarterbacks. I personally think Eli Manning was a more talented quarterback. I thought he was a better quarterback prospect. I hope Daniel Jones proves me wrong. But if Eli Manning came up with this team in this era of social media, with the with the talent that's on this roster, he never sees it to year 4.
Oh yeah, we're having the same exact
fans
conversation.
Rush him off the team, and that's why I tread lightly with saying, oh, you got to get rid of Daniel Jones. He's not the guy. Well, what have we given Daniel Jones? We set him up for failure, Bobby, from the start.
Yeah, and this isn't even saying like, oh, Daniel Jones is the guy. It's like, hey, it's like you just like it's let's give him some time. Like it's just trying to be reasonable. All right, let's end this damn stream. We appreciate you guys. We'll be back on Thursday, myself and Chris. No more Wednesday Simple Man Radios. We'll see you then. Until then, stay simple.
Stay simple.